sister-in-law gave my son a DNA test kit for Christmas to prove he wasn't my husband's, but when her own son took one too, we found out her kids weren't her husband's. I met my husband, James, in our late 20s, and we quickly fell in love. After 2 years of dating, we got married, and since then, we've been living a happy, peaceful life. Our bond seemed unbreakable, built on trust and shared dreams. Together, we welcomed our beautiful son, Nathan, into the world, and he's been our pride and joy. Now 5 years old, Nathan fills our days with laughter, love, and endless energy. We felt like the perfect little family, and I thought nothing could come between us. That was until Sarah, my sister-in-law, decided to throw a wrench into everything. Sarah and I had never truly gotten along. From the moment James introduced me to her, there was an underlying tension between us. I had tried to be friendly, but it was clear that Sarah had other plans. At her wedding, she accused me of trying to overshadow her because I wore a cream-colored dress. Now, mind you, this wasn't a decision I made. Sarah had specifically chosen for all her bridesmaids to wear cream. Yet, on her big day, it somehow became about me stealing the spotlight. She threw a tantrum, turning what should have been her day of joy into an awkward mess for everyone. From that point on, it was a constant game of snide comments, backhanded compliments, and petty actions. If I wore a new dress, Sarah would say, "That's nice, but I liked it better when I saw it in the store last year." If Nathan hit a milestone, she would find a way to downplay it, comparing him to her own son, Tommy. It was exhausting, but James and I always took the high road. We didn't want to let family drama ruin our lives, and besides, we wanted Nathan and Tommy to grow up close, like brothers. However, things took a dark turn this past Christmas when Sarah decided to stir the pot in a way that no one expected. For Christmas, she gave Nathan one of those DNA testing kits that everyone seems to be using these days. Initially, I didn't think much of it. Nathan has always had an interest in science, and he loves learning about family history. But something about Sarah's smug smile when she handed him the kit didn't sit right with me. I could feel there was more to this gift than met the eye. Later that evening, James pulled me aside, his face troubled. He said that Sarah had made some strange, almost cryptic comments to him, remarks about finally getting some answers and how the truth always comes out. I felt a chill run down my spine. It didn't take long to put two and two together. Nathan has green eyes, while both James and I have brown eyes. Of course, anyone with even a basic understanding of genetics knows that recessive traits, like green eyes, can skip generations. But Sarah had been making subtle, passive-aggressive comments for years, hinting that maybe James wasn't really Nathan's father. This gift was Sarah's way of planting seeds of doubt in our marriage, a calculated move designed to make James question Nathan's parentage. I was furious. How dare she try to turn something as innocent as a child's curiosity into a tool for her petty games? But James and I refused to let her win. We knew the truth. Our love and trust in each other were strong, and we weren't about to let Sarah's poisonous actions shake that foundation. We agreed to let Nathan take the test if he wanted to, confident that the results would only confirm what we already knew. Nathan is our son, and no test would ever change that. Nathan, completely unaware of the tension brewing beneath the surface, was excited about the science behind the DNA test. He loved the idea of learning about his ancestors and where his family came from. So, we helped him with the process, and he sent off the kit. Meanwhile, Sarah's son, Tommy, had been watching all of this unfold with great interest. Being a curious 14-year-old, Tommy decided he wanted to take a DNA test as well. Sarah's husband, Todd, thought it would be a fun family activity, so they went ahead and ordered a kit for him too. What started as harmless curiosity soon spiraled into a family disaster. A few weeks later, Nathan's results came back, and as expected, everything was as it should be. James was his father, no question about it. But then, the shock of a lifetime came when Tommy's results arrived. It turned out that Todd wasn't Tommy's biological father. The truth came crashing down hard. Sarah had an affair more than a decade ago, and Tommy wasn't Todd's child. The revelation hit the family like a wrecking ball. Todd was devastated. He had raised Tommy as his own, never suspecting that Sarah had been unfaithful. To make matters worse, Todd demanded a paternity test for their younger daughter, who was only 7. The results confirmed his worst fears: he wasn't her father either. Sarah's entire life, which she had worked so hard to craft into the perfect image, was unraveling before her eyes. And it wasn't a quiet, private unraveling. The whole family knew, and the fallout was ugly. Within days, Todd had filed for divorce and moved out of their home. Sarah's world crumbled, and the once smug woman who had tried to destroy my family now found herself standing in the wreckage of her own. The irony of the situation was hard to ignore. Sarah's attempt to tear apart my marriage had only led to the exposure of the lies in her own. Tommy was hit the hardest. He went from being a carefree, happy teenager to a confused and heartbroken young man. The man he had called dad for his entire life wasn't his father, and now, his family was falling apart. Nathan, too, was affected. He and Tommy had always been close, and seeing his cousin go through such turmoil left him sad and anxious. He started asking questions about why Tommy's dad wasn't around anymore, and it broke my heart to see him so worried about his cousin. As the days passed, Sarah's life continued to unravel. Todd pushed for full custody of their kids, determined to minimize Sarah's influence in their lives. Sarah, who had always been the one holding the family together with her controlling ways, now looked like a shadow of her former self. At family gatherings, she was a nervous wreck, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. The woman who had once tried to make my life miserable now seemed utterly defeated. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. Sarah reached out to me. She called me, her voice shaky and tearful, asking for help. She wanted me to talk to Todd, to convince him to ease up on the custody arrangements. She was desperate to salvage whatever was left of her relationship with her children and was asking me, of all people, for advice. At first, I was stunned. After everything she had done trying to undermine my marriage, causing chaos at every opportunity she had the audacity to ask for my help, I ignored her calls at first, unwilling to even entertain the idea of helping her. But as the days went on, I found myself thinking about Tommy. He was the real victim in all of this. None of this was his fault, and yet, he was the one suffering the most. Nathan, too, was struggling to understand why his cousin's life had been turned upside down. I started to feel conflicted. Was it right to hold Sarah's actions against her children? Should I put my own anger aside and help for the sake of the kids? James, of course, told me to stay out of it. He was adamant that Sarah had made her bed and now she had to lie in it. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I could help bring some peace to the children involved. It wasn't their fault that their mother had made terrible choices. So, I found myself standing at a crossroads, unsure of what the right thing to do was. Should I help Sarah, or should I let her deal with the consequences of her own actions? And now, here I am, torn between doing what feels right for the children and keeping my distance from the woman who had caused so much pain. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Update 1. Hi everybody, thank you for taking the time to read my story. I didn't expect such an overwhelming response, and your support has meant a lot to me during this difficult time. It's been incredibly tough trying to navigate the emotional roller coaster I'm on right now, and knowing there are people out there who understand and care has really helped. I wanted to give an update on what's been happening since my last post, and I hope it sheds some light on the complex situation we're dealing with. Sarah is still constantly calling me, and, to be honest, it's becoming exhausting. I thought at some point she might back off or calm down, but she hasn't. She's relentless. There was one particularly bad day where she called me 3 times in a row, leaving long, tearful voicemails. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but after everything, it was hard to muster much sympathy. At one point, my husband, James, got so frustrated that he couldn't take it anymore. He called her himself. James rarely loses his cool, so when he called her, I knew it was serious. I could hear the anger in his voice from across the room. He blew up, telling her he was done with her disrespecting me and trying to manipulate our family. He made it clear that this wasn't just about the DNA test, it was about years of snide comments, manipulation, and her complete disregard for boundaries. Sarah didn't take it well. She broke down crying on the phone, telling James that I had poisoned his mind against her, that I was the one turning him away from his family. Hearing her sob like that left me feeling conflicted. Part of me felt a sliver of sympathy, but mostly, I was just tired. After that conversation, things got worse. Sarah's tone shifted again. She started texting me repeatedly, swinging between asking for help and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. One moment, she was pleading for my support, saying how much she needed me to talk to Todd and help smooth things over. The next, she was calling me manipulative, claiming I was jealous of her and her family, that I wanted to destroy her marriage. It was as if she couldn't decide whether I was her enemy or her savior. Honestly, it's been exhausting dealing with her emotional outbursts. I feel like I'm stuck on a roller coaster I didn't sign up for. Through all of this, my biggest concern has been the kids. They're innocent in all of this, yet they're the ones suffering the most. I can't stop thinking about Tommy and Nathan. The revelation about Tommy's real father must have been devastating for him, and it's clear that he's struggling to process it. It's hard for me to watch him go through this without being able to help. Nathan, on the other hand, doesn't fully understand what's going on, but he knows something is wrong. A few days ago, we had a family gathering, and Nathan wanted to play with Tommy, just like old times. They used to be so close, inseparable, really, but when Tommy came over, I could see the change in him immediately. He was distant, quiet, and hardly engaged with Nathan. My heart broke watching the two boys, who had once been like brothers, now drifting apart. Nathan kept asking why Tommy wasn't laughing or playing like he used to, and I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. Instead, I made up excuses, telling him that Tommy was just tired or had a lot on his mind. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Meanwhile, Sarah keeps sending me these long, dramatic texts. Just yesterday, she sent me a message saying how she felt betrayed by our family. I honestly wanted to scream. How could she feel betrayed? It was her choices that led to this mess in the first place. But still, she seems completely unable to take responsibility for her actions. It's always someone else's fault, mine, James's, Todd's. Never hers. James and I have had countless late-night conversations about how to handle this. We both want to do what's best for the kids, but we're not sure what that is anymore. James believes we should step in and try to help Tommy, especially since he and Nathan are so close. But he's also worried about the consequences of getting too involved with Sarah's mess. We've been trying to walk a fine line between being supportive of the kids and protecting our own peace, but it's been harder than we imagined. To complicate things further, Todd has started reaching out to James. He's been trying to make sense of everything and wanted to talk about the situation. James reluctantly agreed to meet him for coffee. When he came back, he looked more conflicted than ever. Todd, understandably, is devastated. He told James that he feels like his entire life has been a lie, and now he's struggling to figure out how to co-parent with Sarah after everything that's happened. Talking to Todd only made James more torn. Todd is a good guy, and he's just trying to do the best he can for his kids, despite the nightmare he's found himself in. After hearing Todd's side of things, James is even more conflicted about how to move forward. He wants to help, but we both know that getting too involved could drag us further into Sarah's drama. It's hard to know what the right thing to do is. Every time I see Tommy, I feel an overwhelming urge to help him. He's just a kid, caught in the middle of this disaster, and he doesn't deserve any of it. Nathan keeps asking why Tommy seems so sad all the time, and it breaks my heart that I can't give him a real answer. The more I think about it, the more I feel torn between wanting to step in and the fear of being pulled into Sarah's chaotic world. At the end of the day, all I want is to protect the kids. Tommy and Nathan deserve better than this, and it's painful to watch them suffer because of the mistakes their parents made. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm hoping we can find a way to resolve this without causing more harm. I'll keep you all posted on what happens next, and again, thank you for your continued support. Update 2, hi guys, a lot has happened in the past few days, so buckle up. It's been a lot for all of us, and I'm honestly not sure how much longer this will go on, but here's where we're at. First of all, Sarah decided she wanted to go through with a formal medical paternity test. She wasn't satisfied with the results from the at-home DNA kit, claiming it wasn't a reliable source for making such a big decision. To be fair, the at-home tests do have a margin of error, and I guess she was clinging to whatever hope she had left. But guess what? The results didn't change. The medical paternity test confirmed what the original one did. Todd is not the father of either Tommy or their daughter, and Sarah just dug a bigger hole for herself. I wasn't surprised by the outcome, but this left no room for doubt. Todd, especially, seemed like he was trying to prepare for the worst, but when those medical test results came in, I could see that it still hurt him deeply. He looked crushed, like the last bit of hope he was clinging to had been ripped away. He had mentioned to James before that he didn't expect some sort of miracle, but there was always that small part of him that hoped maybe the test had been wrong. Seeing the confirmation in black and white felt like a final nail in the coffin. After hearing the news, Todd became even more withdrawn. I could see it coming, but I didn't expect what happened next. Apparently, after getting the results, Todd did some digging and tracked down the guy he believed Sarah had the affair with. From what Todd told James, this guy was a co-worker of Sarah's from over a decade ago. Todd had his suspicions about their relationship for a long time, but Sarah had always brushed it off as work stuff. Now, it all made sense to Todd. He had recalled moments where Sarah and this man were unusually close, attending work events together and texting late at night. She always had excuses, convincing Todd it was innocent, but now it seemed like all of those suspicions were coming to a head. So, Todd decided to confront the guy. He tracked him down to his house and went over there without telling anyone. From what I gathered later, Todd wasn't in a great state of mind. He was hurt, angry, and desperate for answers. Things escalated quickly. The guy denied everything at first, but Todd wasn't having it. It quickly turned into a screaming match, and it didn't take long before things became physical. Neighbors heard the commotion and called the cops. By the time the police arrived, both Todd and the guy were roughed up. Todd ended up getting arrested for assault, and now he's facing charges. It's a mess. James had to go down to the police station to help Todd out. He bailed him out, but Todd's facing some serious legal issues now. He's trying to claim the fight was provoked, but it's going to be tough to prove in court. The whole thing just keeps spiraling out of control, and I can't help but feel like all of this stems from Sarah's decision to hide the truth for so many years. Todd is unraveling, and it's heartbreaking to watch someone who was always so composed fall apart like this. Meanwhile, Sarah's been scrambling to do damage control, but it's far too late. Todd has now filed for full custody of the kids, using the affair, the paternity tests, and the fight as evidence that Sarah is an unfit mother. Sarah is panicking. She's trying to convince everyone that Todd is the problem, calling him a psychomaniac and using the fight as proof that he's unstable and dangerous. She's terrified that Todd is going to take the kids away from her, and she's lashing out at anyone who doesn't agree with her. The tension between Sarah and Todd is getting worse by the day. Todd is furious with her for years of lies, and Sarah is desperate to maintain some semblance of control over her life, which is crumbling around her. I can see the toll it's taking on both of them, but more importantly, I'm worried about how this is affecting Tommy and their daughter. Todd has been talking about moving out of state with the kids, wanting to put distance between them and Sarah. He believes that a fresh start is what the kids need, far away from all the chaos, but I'm not so sure. I understand his desire to protect them, but uprooting them from everything they've known could do more harm than good. And legally, it's going to be a tough battle. Sarah, as always, is in full meltdown mode. She's been calling me nonstop, alternating between begging for my help and accusing me of turning James against her. It's emotionally exhausting to deal with her swings. One minute she's pleading for support, claiming she's been wronged, and the next she's ranting about how James and I are part of some grand conspiracy against her. I wish I could say that I didn't feel any sympathy for her, but part of me does. She's clearly spiraling, but at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that she's brought this all on herself. It's hard to watch someone self-destruct, but it's even harder when they refuse to take any responsibility for their actions. The last time I saw Sarah, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she kept repeating how everything was falling apart, how Todd was trying to take her kids away. She's in complete denial that her choices are what led to this mess. She still sees herself as the victim in all of this, and that's what makes it so difficult to communicate with her. She's trying to shift all the blame onto Todd, but anyone who's been paying attention can see that the situation is far more complex than that. At this point, I don't think we have any other choice but to get involved. We're already knee-deep in this mess, whether we like it or not. James thinks we should support Todd and help him get through the legal issues he's facing, especially since Todd seems to be the more stable parent in all of this. But I'm worried about the impact this is having on the kids. They're caught in the middle of a battle they didn't ask for, and I'm terrified that they're going to be the ones who suffer the most in the long run. Tommy, especially, seems to be struggling. He's always been a sensitive kid, and I've noticed a change in him since all of this started. He's quieter, more withdrawn, and it's clear that he's confused about what's going on. I can't imagine what it must feel like to find out that the man you've called dad your whole life isn't actually your biological father. Nathan has asked me a few times why Tommy doesn't want to play as much anymore, and it breaks my heart every time. I don't know how to explain it to him in a way that he'll understand. The situation is spiraling out of control, and I honestly don't know how it's going to end. Every time I think things can't get worse, something new happens that drags us all further into the chaos. We're just trying to take things one day at a time and pray for the best, but it's hard to stay hopeful when the future looks so uncertain. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold, but right now, we're just holding on and hoping for some kind of resolution that doesn't completely destroy the lives of these kids. Update 3, hi everyone, it's time for the final update. A lot has happened since the last time I posted, and I think things are finally starting to settle, though it's been a roller coaster. We're not completely out of the woods yet, but it seems like the worst is behind us. I've been reflecting on everything, and I wanted to share how things have unfolded. First, let's talk about Todd and the guy Sarah had an affair with. You all know how that confrontation led to Todd getting arrested after things turned physical. What I didn't share before is that the situation escalated even further. Initially, we thought Todd might be facing serious charges for the assault, but in a surprising turn of events, the guy decided not to press charges. From what Todd told us, it sounds like this man wanted to distance himself from the whole mess. He probably realized that his involvement could make things even worse for him, both personally and professionally. While this guy did admit to the affair when the police got involved, he has since cut ties with both Todd and Sarah. In a way, that chapter of this story has closed, and honestly, I think that's for the best. Todd doesn't need to keep fighting with someone who clearly never cared about the consequences of his actions. Now for the part about the kids, this has been the most emotionally draining part for everyone. As you know, Todd had initially filed for full custody of Tommy and his little sister, which understandably made Sarah panic. But after some tough conversations with his lawyer and some deep reflection, Todd had a breakthrough. He realized that no matter what the paternity tests say, Tommy and his sister are still his kids. He's been their father since day one, raising them, loving them, and guiding them. That bond isn't something that can be broken by a DNA test. Todd told James and me that he's no longer fighting for custody out of anger or revenge. Instead, he's doing it because he wants to protect the kids from the chaos Sarah has caused. He's determined to shield them from the fallout of her actions, and he's been absolutely incredible throughout all of this. It's so clear how much he loves those children, and that's been his main focus in everything. He's made it a point to remind them that no matter what happens between him and Sarah, they will always be his children. He loves them unconditionally, and he's not going anywhere. The way Todd handled the conversation with the kids was remarkable. He sat them down and explained the situation in a way that was age appropriate, not giving them more information than they could handle, but enough so that they understood why things were changing. He reassured them that they didn't do anything wrong and that none of this was their fault. Tommy, especially, has been having a tough time processing everything. I think hearing from Todd that he's still his dad, no matter what, helped ease some of the confusion and pain. I can see that Tommy is still struggling, but he's not as lost as he was before. Sarah, on the other hand, has been a complete wreck. She's still in full panic mode, trying desperately to salvage her relationship with the kids, but she's not going about it the right way. Instead of focusing on their emotional needs, she's been wrapped up in her own problems, trying to manage her public image and fix the mess she created. Meanwhile, Todd's been the one attending their school events, taking them to doctor's appointments, and making sure they're supported. It's heartbreaking to watch, but Sarah seems more concerned with how things look from the outside than with what's going on inside her family. The custody battle is still ongoing, but Todd has adjusted his approach. He's now pushing for joint custody instead of full custody, acknowledging that the kids still need their mother in their lives, despite everything. Todd is trying to be the bigger person here, recognizing that as hurtful as Sarah's actions have been, the kids shouldn't lose their relationship with her completely. That said, Todd is still pushing for primary custody because he's been the more stable parent through all of this. He wants to make sure the kids have a sense of security and normalcy, which they've been missing for a long time. From what we've heard, the court seems to be leaning in Todd's favor. He's demonstrated that he's the one providing stability for the kids, and his devotion to them is clear. Sarah, unfortunately, isn't helping her own case. She's still making things about her, trying to paint herself as the victim, and using Todd's past outburst as a way to claim he's unfit. But it's obvious to everyone involved that Todd's outburst came from a place of hurt, and he's been doing everything possible to move forward in a healthy way. As for Sarah and Todd's marriage, that's over. The divorce is in motion, and there's no going back. Todd's finally at peace with that. He's told James and me that he's no longer angry at Sarah, he's just sad. Sad for what could have been, sad for how their relationship ended, and sad for the impact it's had on the kids. But he's also focused on moving forward. Todd's priority now is his children, and he's putting everything into being the best father he can be. James and I are doing okay through all of this. It's been tough watching everything unfold, but we've tried to stay supportive without getting too wrapped up in the drama. Nathan and Tommy are still as close as ever, and we've been making sure the boys have time together to help Tommy cope. I think it's been good for both of them to have that connection, especially when everything else feels so unstable. One thing I've learned through all of this is how resilient kids can be when they're surrounded by love. Despite the chaos, Todd's love for his kids has been the anchor that's kept them from completely losing their way. We've all been trying to help, but at the end of the day, it's Todd's strength and commitment that's going to get them through this. I also want to take a moment to thank all of you for your incredible support. I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn because of a DNA test, but here we are. Your advice, kind words, and encouragement have helped me more than I can say. Navigating this situation has been overwhelming at times, but knowing that there are people out there who care and understand has made all the difference. I'm hoping this is the last major update I'll need to give. Things are still in motion, but I'm optimistic that the worst is behind us. The kids are still surrounded by love, and in the end, that's what matters most. Thank you all again for sticking with me through this journey. Here's hoping the next chapter is one of healing and peace.